We will kick off then. I declare open this hearing of the Environment Communications References Committee into the Internet Search Engine Online Safety Code and the social media ban. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet and pay my respect to the elders past and present. I extend respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. The committee will be conducting today's hearing via video conference and in person. We have a bunch of senators here in the room today, which is fantastic, and our witnesses who have joined us this morning via the video stream. Of course, this is a public proceeding, and the video is being streamed live via the Parliament House website, and a Hansard transcript is being made. I remind all witnesses that in giving evidence to the committee that they are protected by parliamentary privilege. They are protected by parliamentary privilege, and it is unlawful for anyone to threaten or disadvantage a witness on account of evidence given to a committee, and such action may be treated by the Senate as contempt. It is also contempt to give false or misleading evidence. Witnesses have the right to request to be heard in camera. For witnesses joining today's hearing from overseas, please note that while your evidence is protected by parliamentary privilege here in Australia, that protection doesn't extend beyond Australia. If a witness objects to answering a question, they should state the ground upon which the objection is made, and the committee will determine whether it insists on an answer, having regard for the ground on which it is claimed. If the committee does insist on an answer, a witness may request the answer be given in camera. I remind senators of our obligations under the Behaviour Code for Australian parliamentarians to treat witnesses with dignity, courtesy, fairness and respect. And I remind committee members and witnesses who are appearing via video conference to have your mute buttons on when you're not speaking. I now welcome representatives from TikTok, Meta and Snap Inc. And I understand that information on parliamentary privilege and the protection of witnesses and witnesses giving evidence to Senate committees has been provided to you. You know the drill. For the Hansard record, I'd like each of you to give us your full names and the capacity in which you're appearing today. And we'll start with representatives from Meta.
Thanks so much, Chair. Mia Garlick, Regional Director of Policy for APAC. Thank you.
Thank you. And Snap?
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Park-Stout, dialing in from Washington, D.C., and I'm the Senior Vice President for Global Policy and Platform Operations.
Thank you. And TikTok?
Good morning. I'm Ella Woods-Joyce, and I'm TikTok Australia's Public Policy Lead for Content and Safety.
Great, thank you. And before we kick off formally, I just want to thank you all for making yourselves available today. I do express disappointment that you're not physically in the room. I understand that a number of you requested to appear via video because of other things going on in your life. Understandable, we all have that, but just to make it clear, we would have preferred you to have been here in person. And I understand that it's the timeframes that people are dialling in from, including Washington. Appreciate you making your time available for us today. Now, do each of you have an opening statement you would like to give the committee? Yes? Okay, we'll start with Meta.
Thanks, Chair. And thank you to the committee members for the opportunity to be here today. I wanted to start by saying that at Meta we certainly share the Australian Government's intent that young people should have safe and age-appropriate experiences online, which is what we understand to be the underlying goal of both the industry codes and the social media age ban law. We've been engaged in constructive dialogue with all levels of government on how we can best meet the obligations for both of these regulations. I have to say, though, compliance with the latter presents numerous challenges that we're actively working through. Most notably, 16 is a globally novel age boundary that presents significant new engineering and age assurance challenges. And this is because Meta's existing technologies are built to identify the significant age milestones of 13 and 18. The final report of the age assurance technology trial notes the challenges of age assurance technologies at the age 16 boundary compared to the 13 and 18 age boundaries. In relation to age inference, for example, the report found that adolescents often have limited public records, payment credentials, or distinct online habits, making fine-grained inferences across age bands, for example, distinguishing 13 from 16 inherently less reliable. And it also found greater challenges at the 16 age boundary with age estimation technologies. Notwithstanding these challenges, we continue to work through the reasonable steps we can take when the social media age ban law takes effect on December 10th. In addition to working through the approaches to compliance, Meta has also continued to make considerable investments to build age-appropriate experiences into our services globally, most notably with the launch of teen accounts. When we first launched teen accounts for Instagram in Australia in September 2024, we've then since been expanding it from just initially on Instagram to both Facebook and Messenger. So this is a reimagined experience that has built-in protections that limit who can contact teens, the content they see, and the time they spend online. Globally, hundreds of millions of teens have been placed in teen accounts, with 9 out of 10 accounts choosing to stay in the more restrictive settings, which indicates to us that young people find this to be a positive experience. Recently, we announced that Instagram teen accounts will be guided by a PG-13 movie ratings by default, meaning that teens will only be able to see content on Instagram that's similar to what they'd see in a PG-13 movie. And we've also begun using AI technology to find those accounts that we suspect to be under 18, even if they list an adult birthday, and place them in the teen account safety settings. And we've also issued notifications to parents on Instagram in Australia with information about how to have conversations with teens about the importance of listing the correct birthday on their accounts to ensure that they're having a safe and age-appropriate experience. Our focus on providing age-appropriate experience for teens also means that we've invested in numerous measures to better understand age. We adopt a waterfall approach, which is an approach that was endorsed in the Australian Government's Age Assurance Technology Trial Report. So specifically, we initially start with the least privacy intrusive method and then seek additional information when we have the reason to doubt the provided age. I do want to highlight that there's a difference between age verification, which is the focus of much of the committee's terms of reference, and age assurance, which is the approach that we adopt at Meta. Obviously, age verification means confirming age with reference to an authoritative source, such as a government-issued ID, and that's a subset of age assurance, which refers to a range of different methods and processes to establish a person's age. Whilst we adopt a data minimisation waterfall approach, when the age assurance solution is left up to each individual app to adopt, there will inevitably be an increased risk of inconsistent outcomes and privacy and security challenges. And a more privacy-preserving and consistent way to assure age across industry would be for OS and app stores to confirm age and then share that age band signal with the apps, who can then apply their age assurance solutions suitable for that age band. So in closing, I'd like to reiterate that with respect to the committee's areas of focus, namely the implementation of the Phase 2 industry codes and the social media age ban law, Meta is focused on our approach to compliance with these regulations and with the codes having been registered by the eSafety Commissioner just last month, and the relevant guidance to key aspects of the social media age ban law having also been released in the last month. We're refining our compliance approach and look forward to sharing more details in due course. I hope that these opening remarks are helpful and welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go to Ms Stout in Washington.
Thank you again, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before the committee to discuss Snap's approach to the social media minimum age law. Snapchat is and has always been a messaging app. Since its founding, Snapchat was designed to help close friends communicate in the moment, to stay connected through photos, videos, and chats that reflect real life. While we've added features over the years, messaging remains the core purpose of Snapchat and the primary way our community uses it. The government created exclusion rules that exempt platforms whose sole or primary purpose is messaging, voice, or video calling from the minimum age requirement. They did this because they recognize that young people need to be able to communicate with friends and family. Over 75% of the time on Snapchat spent in Australia is messaging and calling, the same functions used on services like WhatsApp, Messenger, and iMessage, all of which have been excluded from these restrictions. Yet, despite this, Snapchat has been classified as an age-restricted social media service. We do not agree with this interpretation. We have provided compelling evidence to the e-Safety Commissioner showing that Snapchat's primary purpose is messaging, in line with the government's stated approach. Nonetheless, we will comply with the law, even though we believe that it has been unevenly applied and may risk undermining community confidence in the law. Beginning December 10th, we will disable accounts for Australian Snapchatters under 16. We know this will be difficult for young people who use Snapchat to communicate with their closest friends and family. For teens, connection and communication are strong drivers of happiness and well-being. Taking that away does not necessarily make them safer, and it may instead push them towards other messaging services that lack Snapchat's safety and privacy protections. We share the government's goal of protecting young people online, but we believe that restricting their ability to communicate on Snapchat will not necessarily achieve that outcome. We will act responsibly and transparently throughout this process, including helping users verify their age so that if they are 16 years or older, they can keep their accounts. We will continue to engage constructively with the e-Safety Commissioner and the government with full respect for the law, even if we fundamentally disagree. Thank you, and I'm very pleased to answer your questions.
Thank you. And Ms. Woods-Joyce.
Thank you, Chair. TikTok has held a consistent and public position on age bans for social media platforms. We share the concerns of the many experts who have stated that blunt age bans won't work and will not resolve the genuine concerns the legislation aims to address. We support evidence-based, sensible legislation that improves safety standards for all internet users. However, experts believe a ban will push younger people into darker corners of the internet where rules, safety tools and protections don't exist. As a mum of two, I understand the challenges families face with online safety. They are challenges most families navigate every day, just like ours does. That being said, now that the legislation has passed and the e-Safety Commissioner and Privacy Commissioner have both issued their guidance, TikTok's focus is on compliance. Under the social media minimum age law, we acknowledge that TikTok is an age-restricted social media platform. Put simply, TikTok will comply with the law and meet our legislative obligations. TikTok already supports teens through safety by design features, including specific support for younger teens that reflect their developmental age, offering significant specially designed settings and features. This includes features like default screen time limits, family pairing tools, and restriction on certain features like direct messaging. There's always more work to do. We know there's no finish line when it comes to keeping our community safe, but we are on track to meet our compliance. And with that, thank you to the committee, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Okay. Thank you all. I just got a question firstly for Meta. Your teen account, is that going to fall within or outside of the government's restrictions?
So the teen account experience is from 13 to 18. So obviously those that are 15 and below, they'll be actioned in compliance with the law, and then the teen account settings for those 16 to 18 will remain in place.
So the teen account will only legally apply here in Australia from 16 to 18?
That's right.
And how many young people do you suspect will be using the teen accounts under 16?
Well, I mean, the goal from our perspective as in compliance with the law would be to remove those that are under 16.
So how many users currently across both the teen accounts and just regular user accounts do you believe you have under the age of 16 currently?
So I don't have precise numbers to share with you, but the behind-the-screens transparency report that the e-Safety Commissioner released in February might give you a sense of the kind of age ranges. So I think all of us disclose numbers in relation to that. So to give you a sense of the age range, on Facebook between 13 and 15, the disclosed number was around 150,000, and on Instagram 13 to 15 was around 300,000. But I can follow up with more precise details as a follow-up.
So you must have those precise details though, because you have to plan for kicking all those young people off Instagram by December 10, don't you?
I don't have them to hand right now, and there are different ways to be looking at the compliance solutions there, and that's something that we're still working through, but I'm happy to share as a follow-up the public data that was disclosed in February and anything more I can share with you now.
So we heard from Snapchat that they're going to be disabling people's accounts on December 10 for those who fall below the age of 16. Will you be disabling accounts of people below the ages of 16 on December 10?
Yes, we'll be looking. Oh, sorry. Go
No. Sorry. The question is to Meta as to whether they will do the same thing.
My apologies.
Yes. Oh, good, Jennifer. Under the law, we'll be deactivating accounts consistent with our compliance approach. It's just we're still working through the precise sort of machinations of that.
And you would expect that you can catch most of those accounts? You've said you know that there's at least 300,000 on Instagram under the age of 16, so they're the easy ones. It's the ones that you're not sure of. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yeah, because we adopt a sort of a waterfall approach where we're trying to have the least privacy intrusive ways to confirm people's established age. So we've gotten good at building out predictive technology around the 18 age boundary, but as was noted in the Age Assurance Technology Trial Report, there are more challenges with applying it at the 16 age marker. So that's still the area that we're working through as we approach the compliance deadline.
Okay. I've got questions for the others, but I'm going to let my colleagues have a go first. I'll go first to Senator Gosh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I'd like each of the companies to answer this question, please. Do you have systems in place to measure or monitor the harm or potential harm that results from use or overuse of your platforms for people under 16 or 18?
Jennifer, do you guys want to go first?
Why don't we go to Meta and then we'll go around to the others?
Certainly. So in terms of harmful content on our services, we have the Community Standards Enforcement Report where we
Sorry. If I might just interrupt you, that is not quite my question. Not so much harmful content. Do you measure the harm or potential harm that use of your services does to people under 18 or 16 or at any age point under adulthood? That's the user experience. Is there any way you're measuring the impact of use of your service on the people who are using it?
I think there's an assumption in your question, and what I'm trying to get to is sort of the staggered way in which we try to approach ensuring that people have positive experiences on our services. So we remove harmful content, we remove malicious accounts, and then we provide transparency around the number of removals, the number of proactive removals, the number of user appeals and account restoration, so people can get a sense of it. And then we also undertake different types of research, either internally or externally, to better understand how people are using our services and make sure that, you know, as things are dynamic and evolving, that we are updating our policies and understanding if there are new tools that we need to be introducing. For example, with teen accounts, you know, we undertook consultation with over 600 stakeholders across 35 countries to make sure that we were designing the tools that were responsive to the insights that parents and teens and experts shared with us about age-appropriate experiences online. But I'm happy to throw to the other companies now.
Can I just clarify? I think Senator Gosh's question is very important, and it's surely you understand and acknowledge that there is harm that is done to young people through social media and being online. And if you can't acknowledge that at the outset, I don't think you can answer the question. But let's have another go.
Well, perhaps if the other companies want to answer that question, and then I'll come back to your answer. Ms. Garlick, thank you.
And we'll go with
Ms. Stout.
Yeah.
Yes, happy to answer your question, Senator. So I think we can approach this question through a number of ways. We take a number of steps to try to understand what is happening on our platform. Transparency report is just but one indicator of the kind of harms that are being reported and that are being addressed that we publish specifically for our Australian market. But we're routinely doing voice of the customer user research, and we're very specific about trying to get input and feedback from teens. Most recently, we launched a teen council specific for Australian teens because we wanted to understand what their lived experience was like. What do teens experience day to day in terms of their interactions online? What are those harms? What would they like parents and policymakers and tech companies, frankly, to know about those experiences? And how can we build our products in a better way that allows for a better approach to addressing those conflicts that may occur online and sometimes offline? So that is very important to us. We also rely heavily on external research. We don't want to check our own homework. There are many other organizations and universities that do research in this space. And I know recently there were 3 Australian NGOs who conducted research that we had nothing to do with. And they submitted evidence to last year's parliamentary inquiry indicating how they were surveying the use of social media platforms by young people. And something that spoke to Snapchat specifically was that Snapchat is quite a different platform in that it connects young people to their friends. It's a communications tool and less a consumption broadcast type of app. And for that reason, some of the negative associations with social media that we understand to be were not as prevalent for Snapchat users because that connection, that sense of social inclusion with friends and family was different. But we never stop. We were constantly conducting our own research and seeking evidence about how users are using our platform in an effort to try to prevent many of the harms that occur.
And before I come to you, Ms. Ella Woods-Joyce, can I just follow up with Ms. Stout? Are you able to give us some examples of measures you've implemented in response to those research findings or internal feedback mechanisms in order to reduce harm in the user experience?
Yes, absolutely. So we have heard from young people that their mental health and their well-being is something they are talking about and considering constantly. And so for us, that has been factored into how we've designed Snapchat very intentionally. Unlike traditional social media that may have some toxic effects like the chasing of likes or perfect posts or comments, there are no comments or likes on Snapchat. Snapchat really is designed to be a place to communicate in real time authentically with your friends and family. So for Snapchat, young people really see this as a place where they can be themselves. We've also designed other product features that really are intended to protect young people from being exposed to people that they don't know. So on Snapchat, you can't just find someone and start communicating with them immediately. In order to communicate, there must be two-way bidirectional acceptance of a friendship to start a conversation. We believe that to be privacy and safety protective so that just because someone has, your username doesn't mean they can start to bombard you with messages. So that's just a few. We also have Family Center, which allows a parent or a caregiver to have tools to see who their children may be talking to online. We give them a window into who the last friends that they maybe have spoken with for the last 7 days. They can also report users and accounts if they see anything problematic. It's just another way for parents to start having a conversation with their teens about how to stay safe and how to protect their mental health and well-being.
Thank you. Ms. Woods-Joyce.
Thank you. And just want to re-emphasise the fact that safety is a top priority for us here at TikTok. We spend more than $1 billion each and every year on the tools, the teams and the technology to keep our community safe. For younger teens specifically, there is also a very different experience on our app as there would be for someone aged over 18. And that is absolutely deliberate because we acknowledge that younger teens have different developmental needs. And what that practically means is that users aged between 13 and 15 have their account set to private by default, for example. They're unable to access particular features and functions like direct messaging. There's a family pairing tool that's available for them. The content that's delivered to them is appropriate for their age as well. There's also things like default 60-minute time limits, for example. And all of this, of course, sits over the top of our community guidelines that are very clear, that are very consistent, and that show the community, of course, what is and what is not allowed on our platform. By way of the inputs that we take, we have specialist internal teams that have intense experience in child safety and so on as well. So we also take external advice from a range of different experts. We have a safety advisory council, for example, that specifically provides feedback on the Australian context to our trust and safety teams. And then we also provide that transparency on the harms that you're speaking about too with regard to our transparency reports. We have a transparency and accountability centre that people are able to come to and understand better how our teams and technology work. And as well as that, we provide access to researchers through an API too. But of course, I'm very happy to provide specific detail on anything in particular. There are more than 50 features that are specifically designed for the safety of younger teens in mind.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Senator Cadell.
Thank you. Straight to you, Ms. Woods-Joyce. We're talking about safety. We're talking about protecting people not only from content but from bullying and intimidation. Culture becomes important in this. What is the culture of your company when it comes to bullying and intimidation?
Well, Senator, as far as the platform's concerned, we take a zero tolerance approach to bullying that is outlined in our community guidelines, and we also, of course, work very hard to enforce those community guidelines as it relates to behaviours on platforms and keeping our younger people safe.
So how is it that when I was in this hearing last time, a member of your staff phoned through the switch here and by intimidation of we get on very well with the leader's office, we get on very well with the shadow minister's office, you shouldn't be asking these questions, you shouldn't be saying this. If a staff member of yours in a government representation area is willing to phone through the switch to a senator's office while in a hearing and intimidate and bully, how can I believe your company doesn't have a culture that tolerates that?
Well, Senator, as I said, we take a very strict approach to making sure that bullying and harassment is not tolerated on our platform. We have tens of thousands of people working around the globe, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, enforcing our community guidelines. I take that same approach myself to be very transparent. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm here to answer any questions you have with respect to the remit of the committee.
I think, to be fair, Ms Woods-Joyce, Senator Cadell, you could, and the point of Senator Cadell's question, you could address the direct concern he's raising about the lobbying and intimidation that was directed at his office, and I'm not sure, perhaps other senators' offices as well. So maybe you could address that particular incident.
Well, Senator, I'm not aware of the details that you're talking about. What I can say is that the team needs to operate professionally and appropriately at all times, and I have confidence that that's what we do.
Isn't it the case that you didn't even want to show up until there was a real threat of a summons to appear today, that we raised that last time? Do we think, TikTok is too big to fail? Are we not accountable? Because I note there was an apology late last week or earlier this week by the person involved to my staff member, but it came only after the confirmation that you would attend. There was nothing, no address, no recognition of this factor until you had to face some consequence and show up. We've talked about the lobbying. You've got an ex-Prime Minister's Deputy Chief of Staff on site. There are threats of legal action to get YouTube included. Is TikTok not just a bullying behemoth that wants to get its own way at any cost?
Absolutely not. Senator, I'm very happy to be here today to answer your questions, and I'm very happy to speak to any of the details that you're after there. We take a very transparent approach to all of the work that we do. I'm very happy to share details of our concerns around the legislation and also our compliance strategy, because at the end of the day, we acknowledge we are captured by the law that the committee is here to speak about. We're very focused on compliance for the December the 10th date, And I know that the committee is very interested in doing that, and we're here to participate.
Okay. You, Ms Stout, I will give you a wrap. I have a reasonably close family member who, I know going back to some UK surveys, not Australia, up to 70% of parents can lie or misrep or assist children to get themselves onto social media earlier than the age, and that creates a problem for you. Where there's mixed parenting in this family that I was talking to, one parent didn't want them accessing, one parent gave them access to social media, not your problem again. And then there was very inappropriate pictures shared and given to a young girl. And I just want to thank Snapchat. You intervened, you put them on a 48 or 7-day lockdown and then banned the account. That was well done. What do we do, though, in those situations where parents are assisting children and their young ones to get around this ban? Because in these parents, the best laid plans of mice and men in one household may not be represented in another. How do we do that?
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for sharing that experience that a friend of yours has had. I'm happy to hear that. The issue you raised is a very complicated one. It's difficult to be a parent. It's difficult to be parents of teens. And just as much as parents lay down rules in their own household, teens work very methodically to try to sometimes evade those rules. On Snapchat, you must be 13 years of age in order to have an account. Obviously, come December 10th, that will be a different age for Australian teens. But we take steps to determine and to remove Snapchatters who are under the age of 13 from having an account. We do that through a variety of ways. Obviously, there's declared age upon sign up. That's not often foolproof. So we use inferred age to determine if there are signals that show that this user is in fact under the age of 13. We find them, we remove them, and we lock those accounts. But my heart goes out to parents because it is quite difficult. And as a parent myself to 2 teenage girls, having those conversations about the responsibility and the maturity to have social media is ever evolving.
And what I see as a challenge here is not the individual 3 messages or 3 groups we've got here. It's the use of them all in concert. Because I see on Insta, which is a more open program, how this all happened. There was some initial "What's your Snap?" where you get that message where they go offline from one platform to another to get around or "What's your TikTok?" to get around these. Yes, you are a messaging service. Yes, you have to friend that, but yes, you control on another platform to come across. How do we stop that sort of combined harm, combined use? To rather than yes, you've got good safety guidelines for your system, you've got good safety guidelines for your system, but there is a way around it. How can we look at that combined harm versus the individual? Anyone? It's a hard question.
I'm happy to jump. Sorry, do you want to go?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's a really insightful question, because I do think this is why industry coming together and working on sort of industry benchmarks is very, very helpful. And I think that's partly what's been attempted to occur with the industry codes, where industry has come together and tried to agree on some benchmarks, and then we can try to apply it across the industry. Because you're right, we do exist now in a very fragmented online world where there's lots of different channels that young people can be using, and so trying to make sure that there's consistency across the various different apps can help policymakers like yourselves, but also parents and the community have greater confidence that we're all adhering to a minimum standard.
Okay. And my last question...
I'm not sure, Jennifer, if you want to add anything.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyone else? Yep. No one? Okay. My last question is, as we go forward, for parents out there who will be worried about kids, and you talk about the parental controls you have. That's if you're aware your children have signed up to these things and have access to their account. Is there a snitch line, a dob in a young kid line? How can, if parents have no ability to shut their kid down?
You're not serious.
I'm serious on this.
Dob in a child.
No, well, this is in blended parenting, Mr. Shoebridge. When one parent, gives access unnecessarily to a child, and another parent doesn't want that, do you think that's fair?
I don't think you should have a dob in a child.
Okay, order. The questions are for our witnesses. You guys can debate in your own time.
Okay, I'm just grabbing Mr. Shoebridge thinks we should be able to avoid the law by endorsement of one parent.
Order. Senator,
order.
Order.
Can you dob in an account?
I'm happy to start with that if that's helpful, Senator. Look, what we will be doing in terms of taking reasonable steps will include a range of works, including the age identity and verification work that I can go into more detail on. But for the specifics of the question that you've asked, we are also designing a dedicated under 16 user reporting button as part of ensuring that we are complying with the law and continuing to take reasonable steps as the Parliament would expect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Senator Shoebridge and then I'm going to go to Senator Pocock.
Cool. It's good to know you've got some integrity measures that will be rolled out to deal with this. It's hard to get an exact number of young people who are going to be impacted in just 43 days on the 10th of December, but the estimates are somewhere around about 2.5 million young people are going to lose access to their social media accounts in 43 days. Could I ask you each to tell us what the experience of someone who's just turned 15, who's on one of your platforms, will be over the next 43 days? And while we've got you on the big screen, we might start with you, Ms Woods-Joyce.
Of course, thank you, Senator. And I do just want to start with saying we do share the concerns of many of the experts that you've heard from that talk about the fact that an age ban may not work and might actually not address the genuine safety concerns that I think we all share about online safety for our young people. There are many genuine benefits for the entire community from being online and finding connection and an outlet for creativity. But of course, the law's passed. The Parliament requires that we comply with it. And what we'll be doing to ensure that we comply is deactivating those accounts for people under 16. But if you're 15 on December the 10th, you'll have a number of options. That includes the ability to deactivate your account. You may also choose to delete the account. But very importantly, we will make sure that users have the ability to archive the content that is already there. And we also want to make sure that we're communicating really clearly with our community about what they can expect and when they can expect it.
We've got some further questions that come from that, but we might then go to Meta and Snapchat. What's a 15-year-old, someone who's just turned 15, what's their next 43 days going to look like?
Certainly, Senator. I'm happy to jump in and then I can throw to Jennifer. So we're still working through the precise sort of wording and flows, but we'll certainly be providing people with notice and deactivation of accounts as well, which obviously, there's deletion, which would remove the account, but deactivation will just, temporarily pause it. So we're looking through a range of different options, but making sure that there is very clear notice to young people and their parents so that they can take the actions that work best for them.
Ms Pakistan?
Yes, thank you, Senator. You've noted that there are 43 days until December 10th, which the law then goes into effect. We have a preliminary assessment from the eSafety Commissioner saying that we're in scope, and we are just treating it as if this were final. Our plan is to comply on December 10th. And we've already started the necessary product and engineering work to do that. What that means is that if you are under the age of 16, we will start communicating to these users rather soon to say, this law is going into effect. Here are ways in which you can secure your memories, your photos, your communications. You may download your data through this tool called Download My Data. And that on December 10th, those accounts will be disabled and locked. Now, if you are a user who is able to establish that they are over 16, they will have an opportunity to do that through a variety of ways. They will have to verify their age through an age assurance mechanism. That will be done in the most privacy protective way possible, but it would require the user to identify or provide identification indicating that they are 16 and above, and go through a series of steps, and then they would then have access to their account.
So are each of you doing an assessment, a preliminary assessment of age of users on your accounts based upon the history and interaction you've had with them? And then you're then going to roll out an initial freeze on accounts based on your assessment? We might go in reverse order. Ms Parkstall.
Yes, Senator. So I believe it's been published that there are approximately 440,000 Snapchatters in Australia between the ages of 13 and 15. They have declared their age to be between the ages of 13 and 15, so we will start with that population. We will communicate to them and tell them that their accounts will be disabled on December 10th. We also, through a variety of other ways, through signals, may add to that population if we indicate that a knowledge of some users who could be between the ages of 13 and 15, and we will then start working through the deactivation of those accounts. But I think it's important to say, we are looking into this still about what happens to that 15-year-old you mentioned. If that is a 15-year-old and 11 months and they turn 16 a month later, what should that person's experience be? And our belief is that we should take a very, humane approach to this. And right now, I'm not able to give you full details, but we are thinking about holding those accounts in a frozen type of state so that when they do turn 16, if they wish to reactivate their account, they will not have lost all of their memories, all of their contacts and their photos.
Well, we might just quickly go through the other platforms, but if you could address the very real concerns that showed up, for example, in the recent Discord data breach, where 2.1 million government IDs, which were necessary for age verification, were hacked. Perhaps as you go through and talk about requiring IDs, requiring information, I know you're not putting these requirements in place, but what are the privacy risks that you see for young people as that rolls out? Ms. Woods-Joyce?
Thank you, Senator. And I think privacy is obviously a really critical consideration here. We've seen the advice from the E-Safety Commissioner and the Privacy Commissioner with regard to their expectations around data minimisation. At TikTok, we do take a data minimisation approach to the information that we collect on our users.
But you probably heard the Privacy Commissioner in the evidence that she gave, quite frankly, point out that the same risks that apply for Discord are going to apply of necessity as this is rolled out. So I know they say that, but they also acknowledge the very real privacy risks that the Discord shows. But yes.
Yeah, I understand. And just to be clear, with respect to taking IDs, of course, that is one option amongst many options that our users might have to assure their age. And when we use an ID verification, we are actually relying on a trusted third-party provider, and then they will then send a signal back to us as to whether the user is aged old enough to use our service. So there are different ways we could appeal age. They are privacy preserving, and we're doing our very best to make sure that we're not collecting more information than we need. I'm also very happy to speak about our privacy collection security structures as well, if that's of assistance.
Well, we might then just quickly go to Meta. You've a 15-year-old, just turned 15, going to have their accounts deactivated, frozen. They may be able to download photos, but if they don't access that before the 10th of December, that's not available. What's going to happen to all those social connections and their memories?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're still working through the sort of a lot of the precise flows, but just to go to your point around sort of our approach to the IDs and things like that that may be used as part of the age assurance process, we do use a third-party provider, Yoti, where people are given the option either of a video selfie, which is an age estimation approach, or ID, providing government IDs. We don't store any of that as part of our processes. That's all maintained by Yoti. There are some instances where we do ask for ID if we think an account is fake and things like that, and in those instances, we only store the data for 30 days. It's encrypted in transit and stored separately. So we're very alive to the privacy and security risks and trying to make sure that we're adopting the least intrusive approach at all times. But ID is a very small part of our age assurance process.
Now, I don't blame you for the arbitrary timetable that the government's put on you. Like, you have to comply in 43 days. The information about what you have to comply with has only slowly been made apparent to you. But it seems to me astounding that all your three platforms are still working out the technology, the information flows for a young person, for 2.5 million young people. I mean, can you think of another example around the world where this kind of arbitrary timeframes and imposition has been placed on platforms, given what an impact it's going to have on 2.5 million young people? Have you had this kind of rushed regulation anywhere else? Ms. Parkstow.
I can't speak to that, but I do think the Age Assurance Technology Trial Report does point to a number of the challenges with this globally novel minimum age of 16. So it is I think all of us would be hard-pressed if we went into a high school and had to sort of guess if somebody was 16 or 15. So I think we're all working to try to comply with the law as best we can.
Ms. Parkstow.
Yes, Senator, this is an incredibly complicated situation, and Australia is a first mover in this space. And so we are learning as we go along on how best to execute a plan to comply with the law. Age assurance has a number of privacy risks. It naturally requires the collection of incredibly personal information. And as was seen by the Discord breach, it is so alarming when 70,000 users have their private data leaked into the public. This is for the reason why Snap and many others have been very supportive of device-level age assurance. That means requiring the devices, Apple, Google, or App Store levels to collect age at the point of sale so that they can share the age signal with the thousands of apps that user chooses to verify their age with. So that is just but one mechanism. We don't have the luxury of that now, as Google and Apple have not set that up, but we're going to do the best we can to comply.
And lastly, Ms. Woods-Joyce.
Thank you, Senator. And I think the government itself has also said they're building the plane as they're flying it, for lack of a better term. We are working very hard to make sure we comply. But as you say, this is novel legislation, and we are just doing the very best that we can to support our community, to prioritise their safety and their privacy, and we'll communicate as clearly as we can, as early as we can, to make sure that our community understand what they can expect from us in the lead up to December the 10th.
Thank you. Senator Pocock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your time this morning. Ms Garlick, Meta turned off advertising to children in the EU. However, it continues to advertise to children in Australia. I'm interested why that's the case.
So in Australia, advertising to young people is limited based on targeting, based on age and location. So it's fairly consistently limited.
My understanding is that it was turned off in the EU. Is that incorrect?
I'll have to come back to you on that one. I thought it was mainly in relation to political ads, but let me come back to you.
Okay, thank you. What proportion of harmful content that reaches teens originates from your algorithmic recommendations rather than user searches or follows?
Yeah, so one feature of the teen accounts experience is that teens are placed into the most restrictive content settings. So and then also we've got the additional controls to make it a PG-13 experience. So we're designing it so that just the general experience of ranked content is at the highest sort of protective level. And then also we have restrictions on the content that can be recommended to reduce any content that might sort of not violate our policies but otherwise not be appropriate for young people from being recommended on surfaces like the Explore surface and things like that.
Thank you. Maybe I'll put her on notice as well, but what percentage of content that does violate your policies is arriving in front of users due to your algorithm rather than them searching things? Do you have that data?
I don't have that data, but when in our transparency report we do provide disclosures around how much content we're proactively finding before people are exposed to it, and it's a very high percentage. So I'm happy to share more details with you about that. But it's certainly our ranking and recommendation systems are not set up to serve people with potentially violating content.
Mm-hmm. And how are your For You feeds or stories curated for accounts identified as under 18?
Well, again, we've got higher control settings for accounts that are under 18. So we're trying to make sure that people have the equivalent of what you'd have in a movie for a movie that's sort of PG-13. So again, we're recognising that young people want to be connecting with a range of different content, but working to make sure that they're not being exposed to harmful or potentially harmful content.
Okay. I'll put some more on notice around that. But do you have internal metrics linking engagement optimisation to teen wellbeing outcomes?
We do undertake a range of different sort of researches to understand how people are interacting on the platform, both teens and everyone. But we certainly don't try to connect with the system is not designed to optimise for engagement. Certainly, the ranking algorithm is actually designed to put the most relevant content at the top, so that people can have a sort of a positive and intentional experience. And then within the teen accounts experience, there are also time management tools that can give people warnings and notifications if they've been spending too much time on the platform and they want to take a break.
So, Ms. Garlick, so Meta algorithm is not optimised for engagement?
The ranking algorithm is designed to put the most relevant content at the top so that people can see things that are the most useful and interesting to them. And then the recommendation algorithms are typically designed to connect people with content that they might be interested in based on other things that they've been interacting with, but they might not be connected to. So I'm happy to share more details around the different signals that we use to factor into those, but it's designed to make people have sort of an intentional and useful experience on the platform.
I'm a little bit confused. Earlier you said that it wasn't about optimising engagement, but that seems to me what your platform is all about, just sucking attention and keeping people on the platform for as long as possible. Is that incorrect?
Yeah, I think that's a mischaracterisation. From our perspective, we're focused on people having a relevant and useful experience, and if they're feeling like they're not having that, if they're spending too much time on the platform, then they won't continue to be using our services. So that's why we have ranking and recommendation algorithms, and we provide transparency about the different signals that we use to feed into those.
Sure. And so if you are about a good experience and user well-being, what checks and balances do you have in place to ensure that people aren't spending hours and hours and hours on your platform?
Sure. We run user surveys across the site all the time to get feedback from people about their experience, whether they want to see more or less of particular pieces of content. We also have on-platform transparency tools so people can see why they're seeing a particular piece of content or an ad, and then they can send us feedback if they don't like it. And as I mentioned in the teen accounts experience, there's also time management tools that can be set to help people limit and manage their time spent on our services.
What percentage of users utilise those time management tools?
I don't have that number to hand, I'm sorry. I'm happy to come back to you on that.
I'll put a bunch on notice. I've just got some questions for TikTok. Ms. Woods-Joyce, you said that TikTok spends over $1 billion on safety. How big is TikTok Australia's safety team?
We have a number of, beg your pardon, Senator. We have a number of trust and safety staff in Australia. The safety hub for the region is serviced out of Singapore, though. But of course, the platform is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we make sure that there is coverage in language and moderation at all times across the course of a 24-hour period.
Right. So what's that full-time equivalent staffing for Australia?
I don't have a precise figure, but I'm very happy to get one for you, Senator.
Okay, thank you. How big is your child safety team in Australia?
Again, I'm not quite sure of the headcount specifically in Australia, but there is also a provision for Australia. Let me go away and be precise in giving you the headcount for the Australian market.
Okay. Do you know how big the headcount is for TikTok Australia in total?
We have more than 700 staff in Australia at the moment across a diverse range of teams, from engineers to sales staff and the like. But that's the headcount for Australia.
So sorry, can we get that clarified? So you've got 700 staff, but none of them are in the safety team?
No, we do have safety staff in Australia, that's correct. I just want to be precise in providing a figure back to the committee.
Okay, we can get that precise figure, but could you give us a sense? Like, is it 100 of that 700? Is it 200? Or is it 10?
So I know there are trust and safety engineers, for example. I know that there are trust and safety purist policy staff in Australia. I genuinely don't have an accurate figure in front of me, but I'm very happy to get that back to you as soon as
you must have a sense of whether it's more like 100 or more like a dozen.
I think it's closer to, it's below 100 is my guess, but I just want to be really precise, and I'll come back to you as soon as I can.
Senator Pocock.
Thank you, Chair. What was TikTok's revenue in Australia in the last financial year?
Again, I'm sorry, Senator, I don't have the precise figure with me. I'm very happy to get that for you, and I can turn that around very quickly.
Okay, I'll put a bunch of things on notice then. I notice as part of an effort to strengthen children's privacy, TikTok has turned off targeted advertising using children's personal data in Europe and America. Has that happened in Australia?
So we do provide the ability for advertisers to do a very limited amount of below 18 ad service, but we, on top of our regular policies to keep that community safe, we provide some very strict restrictions around what that can look like and what products are able to be served to users under the age of 18.
So why is there a difference between Europe, the US and Australia?
I guess those are international jurisdictional questions. What I know that we're focused on is making sure that we abide by the law in Australia, that we prioritise the safety of our younger users in particular, and that's why we put extra rigidity around our policies to make sure that the ads that are available for younger people is very consistent with our strong guidelines.
What children's personal data do you use to target ads in Australia?
So we need an age, and we need an age for a range of safety reasons, including making sure that the ads those younger people receive are appropriate for them. So there are a range of data points that we would use from a user with respect to both organic and paid to make sure that they are receiving a safe and appropriate experience online. I'm very happy to get some granular detail through to you as well.
Sure. And what tools do you use to keep ads that young people see safe? What's the vetting process there?
So it would depend on the category, but for example, restricted products like alcohol or wagering, we require additional sets of protections, including how their accounts are managed, the type of ads that they're allowed to put into the market, and of course we use additional layers of age security around making sure those ads go where they're intended to go, and they're not bleeding into a person's account that might be aged under 18.
Okay, thank you. How many child safety incidents have you reported to eSafety or law enforcement in the last 12 months?
It's an excellent question, and we do disclose the law enforcement requests through our transparency report, as well as the request from eSafety. I would have to follow up the specifics for you, but I know that our law enforcement team is very engaged in our market, and we will actually proactively raise risks to law enforcement where we believe that there is an imminent risk of harm.
Sure. Maybe I'll put them on notice too then.
Sure.
Meta, do you have Ms. Garlick, do you have an answer for that?
I don't have it to hand. It's often, it is disclosed in our transparency report, and I'm happy to provide you with the specifics of that.
Okay, thank you. And then just finally back to Ms. Woods-Joyce, to the issue around optimising for engagement versus user well-being. What's TikTok doing there? Do you have any external ethics bodies reviewing your algorithm, or is it all in-house?
I mentioned before that we have a Safety Advisory Council that provides specific advice to our trust and safety teams that is relevant to Australia. That's one mechanism that we use, but that is on top of a range of really comprehensive tools that we put in place, particularly to keep our younger users safe. I mentioned again before that we have more than 50 specific tools and functions designed to keep our younger users in particular safe. You're talking about engagement and time on platform. One really good example of that is we have a default 60-minute time limit for all teen accounts. I think you're aware we have a family parenting tool too. So we also allow that teenagers to link their accounts to their parents, and that means that families can make decisions together about what they're comfortable with insofar as it relates to screen time and engagement as well. So there's a lot that we do, and I'm very happy to, again, provide some more granular detail on anything in particular that you're keen to hear about.
Thank you. And what percentage of under 18s are using your teen accounts?
Well, the teen accounts are set by default. They don't have an option. When we have their age, they are immediately put into the age category that they need to reflect the needs of their developmental needs. So 13 to 15, for example, they don't have access to direct messaging. They have that default 60-minute time limit. So we have their age and we put them in a category dependent on that age.
Yeah, I was talking to a 14-year-old though whose age I think was 25 on your platform. So I'm interested how many teens have you identified who are using just normal TikTok as opposed to your teens' accounts?
So what I would say is, reflecting the Screens report that eSafety put out earlier this year, we've publicly disclosed that around 200,000 Australian teens are in the 13 to 15-year age bracket. I'm happy to try and get a cohort older than that for you. But of course, we are continually doing the age assurance work. So where we identify someone that is, they're saying they're 25, but their behaviours would indicate that they're below the age of 16, for example, we will move to make adjustments to their account, and from December the 10th we will have those accounts deactivated.
Mm-hmm. And so deactivated and deleted, or just deactivated and sitting there to be reactivated at some point in the future?
We'll give them a choice. So as I said before, we will deactivate and that will give the user the ability to also archive their content that they already have. But if they prefer, they can delete their account. They'll have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I'll put the rest on notice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Senator Walker.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. My first one will be to Snapchat. One of the defining features of Snapchat is, how photos are instant. So they've got that timer up in the corner, and then the photo expires. I'm wondering if you're aware, certainly reflecting what is quite known within the younger generations like myself that spent a lot of time on Snapchat. Snapchat is used really frequently for children when they're sharing nude photos in those teenage years. I'm wondering if you were aware of that, because certainly a lot of young people know that's a really dominant purpose of Snapchat for when you're in those teenage years. I'm wondering if you were aware that that's why a lot of young people use Snapchat currently.
Yes, Senator. So with respect to the sharing of intimate images for those minors or those who are under the age of 18, we were regularly advising our community that that is a very serious action to take, and that while in the moment some teens may think that it's silly or funny or in fact ephemeral because you can set your settings to have those messages delete after viewing, we regularly warn young people to not engage in that kind of risky behavior, because you never know that someone may try to screenshot or preserve an image that you think is just meant for that person at one time. And this is unfortunately not a phenomenon found only on Snapchat. It's found across all communications and messaging platforms, I believe. But we've taken some steps to really educate young people as well as their parents about this. So about a month ago, we released something called The Keys. It's a digital guide to staying safe online. And that was launched because we routinely have heard from young people and parents that they want more information. And so in an effort to do that, we provided this audience with the risks of being online. What could you encounter? How do you protect yourself? What should you know about the way that content exists on Snapchat? And in one of those modules, we specifically spent time on the sharing of intimate imagery, because we know that this is like a deeply affecting area for many young people, and we want to make sure that they're empowered to understand how to protect themselves.
Yeah, and like that's all good and true, but it's still happening. And I think one of the most concerning things that we know is happening a lot is people, children are receiving, nude photos from adults. So, that, constitutes some pretty serious legal problems there. The problem that you've got though is because, those photos don't auto-save, or it kind of is just deleted pretty quickly. When younger people are talking up about harassment like that they're receiving on Snapchat, it can be hard to prove that it happened because it sort of all just disappears. I'm wondering what you think of that, if you've got any safeguard mechanisms, what are you doing? Because this is happening, and when we're looking at Snapchat currently, I know you're talking about how there's education and you're talking to young people about how it's not a good idea. It's still happening. There's nothing to protect them, but it is particularly concerning where we're seeing adults harassing children on these platforms. I don't see how these young people are to be protected when the photo comes up and then, naturally they're going to swipe out of it because they don't want to look at it. And then how are they to prove that it even happened?
No, thank you, Senator, for raising this issue. It is a very serious matter, and specifically to what are we doing to prevent the unwanted sending of sexual imagery to young people. This is a very serious matter, and it might be worth taking a bit of a step back on how Snapchat works. Unlike other messaging platforms where all you need is someone's phone number and no one has to accept that, you could just use a phone number and start sending messages to that phone number via text message of nude imagery. On Snapchat, the only way that you can communicate with another person is if both parties have accepted each other as friends. So if by chance you have accepted the friendship of an adult who starts sending you this kind of abhorrent material, what you can do is you can, even if it is intended to delete after viewing, you can press and hold to report that content. When you press and hold, no one knows other than the trust and safety officials who are looking at that content. And that content, even if it's designed to go away, it can be reviewed, reported, and then appropriate action taken on that account.
But I think the problem is that it still happened, and it is still possible I know that you have to be friends on Snapchat to send those photos. There are still instances though where children are able to accept friend requests with adults. I know as someone that was young on Snapchat, 14, 15, you accept every friend request you get because you want to have more friends. Well, as in, what is being done to stop that? Because we know it's happening where adults and children are becoming friends. The children are accepting the friend request because they want more friends. I think that's quite a natural thing. What is Snapchat doing when that happens to prevent these types of communications? Because I don't see anything at the moment.
Yes, no, so I think there's been a great deal of development and evolution on how young people can find friends on Snapchat. So if you are under the age of 18, we do not make you available for adults to be able to prey on young people. We have private friend lists. You cannot go onto someone's Snapchat and say, oh, these are all the people that I'm going to start friending because I'm friends with this one person.
Missed out.
Yeah.
The concern, I think, and let's just be honest, we know that most abuse of young people, both physical and sexual abuse, is done by people they know. It's done by people they know. And so if you're adding somebody who is an adult as a friend, how do we make sure young people are not falling into the trap of being exploited and exposed their vulnerabilities when this person has befriended them, not just in real life, but is using Snapchat as a way to get to them. And I think that goes to Senator Walker's question. Is there anything Snapchat is doing to ensure that young people are protected from adults who are preying on them, whether they know them or not?
Yes, Senator, we are. We're doing quite a bit in that space. And that means if you are a young person, you are not going to show up as a friend suggestion to an adult unless there are multiple friends in common. We do that because we design it so that the people that you actually friend are people that you know. Now, in the situation that you raised, where you may be abused by an adult you actually know and that you proactively added back as a friend, we provide tools that allow for the blocking and immediate reporting of this kind of abhorrent action. And so this notion that just because images may delete after being viewed is not true. If you press and hold and you report that, it is then preserved for a period of time so that law enforcement and trust and safety officials can investigate it and bring this perpetrator to justice.
Are you satisfied with that, Senator Walker?
Yeah, look, I don't think we're getting anywhere.
We're not getting anywhere.
All right, I'm gonna move on to TikTok now. Something that I've been interested looking into is, how algorithms work and how they're sort of communicating with our young people. I'm interested to know, what safeguards do you currently have in place to prevent young people and children being exposed to extreme and harmful content on your platform? And what do you have to measure to make sure that those safeguards are actually working?
Thank you, Senator. It's a great question. And really, the recommendation system from a TikTok perspective is designed with safety at its core. We want to make sure that our users are receiving relevant and entertaining content. And the way that we make a decision about whether content is or isn't allowed is based on our strict community guidelines. They apply to everyone. They apply to everything on our platform. And just by way of reference, around 99% of content that breaches our community guidelines is removed proactively by us before we receive a user report. When we're talking about young people in particular, though, we do make sure that those young people have an experience that's appropriate for their age. So I did mention before an account that's being held by someone aged between 13 and 15. It looks very different to an account that's owned by someone over the age of 18. The same is true for people aged 16 to 18, for example. And just with respect to your previous message, we actually don't allow users aged 13 to 15 to have access to direct messages whatsoever for the very purpose of mitigating the harms that you raised before in your previous question. So there are more than 50 particular tools that we have in place for young people. And of course, the recommendation system is designed to serve content for a younger person that is reflective of their age and their developmental maturity. So, and an example of that would be that something with mature themes, for example, that may be completely appropriate for an 18-year-old. It wouldn't breach our guidelines, but it would be ineligible to be delivered to someone whose account was held who was under the age of 15, as an example.
All right, thank you. We're going to have to rotate the call. We're going to go to Senator Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to nominate Senator Walker as an honorary advisory member of the Snapchat Teen Council.
Totally, absolutely. Good idea, Senator Smith.
I think Senator Walker would be able to bring a tremendous amount of observation and, of course, some authority, having been elected to the Australian Senate. So that is a serious proposition from me, so Snapchat might like to consider that. Just staying with the Teen Council for a moment, how many members, that's on your website in regards to the number of members, I'm just curious to know how many applications or nominations did you receive for the Australia Council, for the Australian membership of the Australian Teen Council? You might... Yep, sorry.
I'm sorry, Senator, is that directed to me?
Yes, please, yep.
I can't give you an exact number of how many applications we received. What I can tell you is the Teen Council in Australia, made up of Australian teens, is about, I would say, around 8 to 10 people, I believe.
And so what was their attitude to the social media ban?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's important to note when we bring in the Teen Council, we obviously invite their parents or their chaperones to participate as well. We think parents deserve to have, similar information and be able to give input. So when we heard from the Teen Council, most of them were quite anxious about this upcoming social media ban going into effect. They didn't feel like they had a lot of information about what was going to happen and what might happen to their accounts. The parents, similarly, were not as relieved about the law. I think they too had a lot of questions about what sort of position their children would be in, what would happen to their accounts, would they be preserved with the messages and memories they had.
And so do you think that the measures that you have spoken about earlier in this hearing have ameliorated some of those concerns by both young people and parents?
Well, I think much of what we heard from young people and parents helped us design what our compliance plan looks like. We thought we weren't going to just immediately shut off or disable accounts for 13 to 15-year-olds. leaving them to feel perhaps more isolated, more anxious, more fearful that they would not have ways to connect with their friends and their schoolmates. So wanting to take a humane approach, we decided, okay, we will live up to our obligation by disabling accounts for under 16-year-olds, but is there a way in which we can communicate directly with these users and give them the tools they need to obtain their memories, the communications that they've had with their friends, and potentially hold their account in some sort of frozen limbo so that when they do turn 16, maybe you're 15 in 10 months, that you then have the ability to access your account. So we're thinking through all of these things. The implementation is quite complex, but much of what we have done was to really pay attention to what parents and young people are saying so that we can design this in a very, human-centric way.
A question to Meta, Snap and TikTok, and there is a capacity to provide information to the committee on a confidential basis, and I'm very, very confident that will be respective. So on notice, I'm interested to understand what future innovations each of you are currently considering or exploring in regards to improving online safety for young people. Just following on from a line of questioning from Senator Pocock, the question is whether you choose to lead or lag in regards to your response to changing community attitudes around the use of social media by young people, and whether or not you choose just to meet the regulatory standard of a jurisdiction or each jurisdiction that you operate in, or whether or not you seek to operate at a global standard, that is, raising your level of operation to the highest global standard in each of the jurisdictions in which you operate. I think Australians would find it difficult to understand why should young people in one part of the world, the United Kingdom or Europe, for example, have different standards of protection to young people in Australia. So I'm keen to understand, and again, you're free to take it on notice. So do each of you choose to operate conscious of what is the global standard in regards to protecting young people, or is the corporate policy just to meet the regulatory standard that applies in each jurisdiction? And I thought, now I'm not familiar with young people in Singapore, but I'm a little familiar with some of the cultural differences that might exist between a country like Singapore and Australia and the different sorts of standards and community expectations that arise from that. So I'm very, very keen to understand what is the corporate approach you take, and if you can demonstrate, for example, this is a standard that exists in jurisdiction A and we apply it in jurisdiction B. I'd be very, very interested in hearing about that. Finally, do you think you are leading or lagging when it comes to meeting community expectations around online safety for young people? Anyone can go first.
I'm happy to jump in, Senator. I mean, I think I've talked about the teen accounts experience that we have rolled out across Instagram initially, and now also Facebook and Messenger, and there's over 100 million young people in those accounts. From our perspective, that is a global approach that was built over many, many months of consultation with parents, young people and experts in 35 different countries. So to your point, I think we're always, from our perspective, we want to make sure that we're understanding the issues and concerns of parents and young people no matter where they are, and building to provide them with the confidence that they are able to use our services in ways that they feel safe. And so for us, we are working towards a global standard where we do seek to lead together with other leaders within the industry. But obviously, each country will enact its own laws, and then we work to comply with those laws where there's a delta between the global standard that we've applied and the local law. And in the case of the Australian government, obviously, they've made the decision to remove people under 16 from having a social media account.
Yes, but Senator Smith's question was where the level of protection in a certain jurisdiction is higher than somewhere else. Why wouldn't you apply that across the board? In Europe, you can't target young people with your advertising. You can't scrape their data and target them with advertising. It's prohibited. Why don't you protect children and young people on your platforms here in Australia from being targeted with your advertising on your platforms? Why can you allow algorithms to suggest content to young people on your platforms here where it's highly restricted in other places? And Senator Smith's question is a good one. Either it's a race to the top for protection or a race to the bottom.
Because if there's a commercial benefit in operating at a higher standard, you would take it.
Senator, I'm very happy to speak to this question, and just to say that safety is absolutely the top priority for us, particularly for our younger users. We have not waited for legislation or regulatory interventions to drive innovation and put in these more than 50 safety tools that we have specifically to support teens and young people, irrespective of where they are around the world. So we do, we've spoken about some of those protections already. The accounts for a 13 to 15-year-old are by design very different to accounts held by a 16, 17-year-old or an 18-year-old and above. It's deliberate. It hasn't been reactive. And in fact, these tools have been in place for many years. This is not a new innovation for us. We are always doing more. There is always more to do, but we're absolutely not waiting for regulation to push us there. We're pushing in that direction very happily because we know how important safety is to our community and to families on our platform.
To be perfectly blunt, it feels to me that the platforms use the cover of your teen accounts to suggest you do all of these things, yet there's all these young people who are accessing your platforms outside the official teen accounts. You know how old they are, you know at least what age brackets they sit in because you can identify that. You can have a sense of the content they're sharing, what they're interested in, but then you don't automatically put those protections in place. So you use your teen accounts as cover, but really the damage is being done outside of those young people who are not within the teen accounts. And I find every time we ask questions of how serious you are, you revert back to the teen accounts. But you can't even tell us the difference between the number of people you know in the teen accounts and the number of young people who sit outside. So until you even cough up those numbers, it all just feels like lip service. Senator Smith, do you have any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to go to...
I'll defer to Senator Henderson. Thank you.
Senator Henderson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you all. Now, there were a number of meetings with the Minister on the 13th of October. Can I ask what was discussed? And we did receive evidence that there was attempts to scale back the social media ban insofar as it impacted, I think, on at least some of you. So, Ms Woods-Joyce, did you meet with the Minister?
That's correct, Senator, we did.
And what did you put to the Minister in relation to exempting all or part of your platform from the social media ban?
We didn't put any argument for exemption. We were very clear that we are an ARSMP and that we will be complying with the law by December the 10th.
Did you make any argument that any part of your service should be exempt?
TikTok is an ARSMP, Senator. We've acknowledged that ourselves. We will be complying with the law.
No, that's not my question, Ms Woods-Joyce. Did you make any argument that any part of your service should be exempt from the social media ban, such as short videos?
No.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, Senator, I'm sure.
Okay. I'd like you to check that, please, because we did receive evidence to the contrary that you were seeking some sort of limitation.
We're an ARSMP. There's not much more I can say. We are subject to the law. We will be complying with the law, and we'll be doing so by December the 10th.
And so, what was the tenor of your discussions with the Minister on the 13th of October then?
We talked about our compliance plan and making sure we detailed some of our reasonable steps, for example, and we spoke about the upcoming deadline and the expectations from the Minister to ensure that we were complying.
Ms Stout, have you sought to exempt Snap or any part of your service at all from the social media ban?
Senator, with respect to the October 13 meeting, you mean with the Communications Minister that we had?
Either on that day or on any other day, either in person or in writing?
Yes, I also mentioned it in my opening statement, Senator, that we believe that under the exclusion rule, which excludes messaging platforms from the social media minimum age law, Snap is primarily a messaging platform. And so we, in meeting with the Communications Minister and the E-Safety Commissioner, sought to get clarification on their application of that exclusion rule. We know that other messaging platforms have been excluded as messaging platforms are. And so to us, Snapchat shares many of the same features and functionalities as some of those same messaging platforms that have been granted exclusion.
Sorry, I'm going to ask, apologies, but we've only got a few minutes left, so if you could just keep your answers very short and succinct. So do you accept that you are part of the social media ban now?
Yes, we do. We don't agree for the reasons I stated, but we accept and we will abide by the law.
And Ms Garlick, did you seek to exempt any part of Meta's social media platforms from the social media ban?
No, we've been proceeding on the basis that Facebook and Instagram are in scope.
Can I ask if any of you believe that YouTube should be exempt from the social media ban? Ms Garlick?
I think our letters have been made public under Freedom of Information requests. We've certainly felt that YouTube should be included within the ban.
Ms Stout?
Senator, we have not weighed in on that at all. We are seeing ourselves as a messaging platform.
Thank you. And Ms Woods-Joyce, do you have a position on YouTube?
We've very publicly and clearly suggested that the rules should apply to everyone equally.
What happens to the data for accounts of those under 16? And I'll start with you, Ms Woods-Joyce.
So it would depend on what action they choose to take on December the 10th. So they may choose to deactivate their account, which would hold their account in a state of suspension. They are able to archive the information that they have on their accounts, so be they videos and what have you. If they choose to delete their account, that information will be deleted.
Ms Woods-Joyce, I'm particularly concerned about TikTok and the data that you collect, because you gather a whole range of information, contact lists, device information, location data, what children watch, how long they watch it, what they scroll past, keystroke patterns. There's algorithmic profiling. There's privacy. Your privacy policy allows you to collect face prints and voice prints, which can theoretically be used for surveillance, identity modelling and deepfake training. You can also map where children go, who they know, who they interact with, and how often, and that, of course, can also be used or misused. There's also the ability of TikTok to use hidden trackers across a number of websites and apps. And, of course, that allows TikTok then to watch users beyond the actual app. So I am deeply concerned about the scope of your data collection and the protection of young people. What are you doing about that? There are some things that can be done, but it is insidious, and particularly when you are owned by ByteDance, which is Chinese, and China's national security laws can require companies to assist intelligence agencies. So this collection of content is so insidious. It's so deep and it's so risky to young people. What are you doing about that to alert young Australians to these profound risks?
I'm happy to say that actually our data and privacy practices are broadly consistent with our peers. We're very transparent about the data that we collect. And in fact, we take a data privacy minimisation approach to things. We don't want more data than we need to make sure that the app is running safe and securely and that it's working as it's intended. I'm very happy also to speak about our business's structure. We are very much a global company. I know there has been some misperceptions about us in the past. We've spoken extensively to the Australian Parliament in a previous committee about that. But TikTok does not operate in China. We are headquartered in the Los Angeles office in Singapore. Our CEO is Singaporean. I'm happy to share more information about the structure of the company, but we are a very global company. We have rigorous processes in place to protect the privacy of our users, and it's a top priority for us, Senator.
Well, can I say, and look, I'm happy to take on notice more information.
We will have to do that because we have hit our marker. So.
Yeah. Can I just say to you that the data that you collect is so extensive that I completely reject what you've just told our committee. The data is insidious, the biometric data you collect. And so my concern is that young Australians in particular are not being warned about the extensive and insidious nature of the data you collect.
I think you can take that on notice, and of course we know a lot of that data is used to power your business model, which is targeting young people with advertising and dangerous algorithms.
I do have more questions.
I know
that we have hit a hard marker.
We've hit a hard marker, and I think there are a number of senators who still have questions for you, so you can expect some of those to be put on notice, and responses to questions on notice should be provided by the 11th of November. I want to thank each of you for appearing today and taking our questions, and to my fellow senators for being here to hold these companies to account. Thank you to Hansard and the committee secretariat. That concludes our session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.